direction in the last couple of years, but I think we're headed in a better direction. There is a bill moving. It's not in the form I personally would like it in, but I appreciate the fact that it's moving, that it will be subject to additional debate on the floor and in the second half of the legislative process. So I feel confident that we will get a solution that provides the services folks who are struggling with substance abuse addiction, the services they need, and also provide law enforcement the tools they need to help get folks and keep folks in treatment and get them back into a more suitable future. On the pursuit issue, which has gotten a lot of attention and should get a lot of attention, this is certainly a contributing factor to some of the lawlessness we've seen across our states, affecting communities, rural and urban and all in between. I'm very pleased that the House passed a bill out today. It's not the policy that I would personally chose, but it's the start. It means we get to continue the debate on that very important issue through the House. Hopefully it'll make it to the Senate, and hopefully that we collectively, what I mean by that specifically is the Chair of Law and Justice, won't stand in the way of continued debate on that important policy, that it deserves a full vetting, it deserves input from the public, it deserves to be covered by media, and it deserves a solution that will meet the needs of our state. And then finally on law enforcement, I'd say on the topic of recruiting and training more law enforcement officers, I think that's actually a pretty bipartisan effort right now to allow for more training opportunities, potentially a discussion about additional funding for cities as we try to rebuild our law enforcement officers to the level we need to keep our communities safe. So lots going on there, and I think based on the bill passing out of the House Committee just in the last hour, I think I'm very encouraged on that topic. On affordability, there's a ton we could talk about. I'm going to just highlight housing, because I think that's the fundamental issue. I mean, we talk about food and gas, housing, child care, health care, all these things affect affordability, but the one that I think is and should get the most attention is housing. In this session, there are some good bills. There's bills that we're supporting from my side of the aisle that we're not entirely comfortable, but we recognize they're important steps, important pieces. Think about the middle housing bill, which has been controversial for different reasons across the state. The transit bill, which doesn't necessarily affect many of our districts, but is important as we provide more opportunity to grow up and out in our state and build more housing. But to go along with that, we need some permitting reform. There are some permitting bills that are moving forward that will make the process better, smoother, faster, and ideally attract more capital. Washington State can be a great place to invest and build more housing, but we have to create the regulatory environment that attracts and gets that investment. And if we do, I think that's the way we solve our problem in the long term. And then there's a few bills out there that I have concerns about in housing. If we do all this and we create a better environment, then we undo it by making our Growth Management Act more difficult. And those that know much about the Growth Management Act, whether you like it or dislike it, you certainly recognize that it's complicated and slow and adds some cost and time. We don't need to make it slower or harder if we're going to get through our housing challenges. So we have some good and bad there. I'm hopeful that we'll get to the right spot. And then the last one I mentioned is education. And frankly, I'd say this has not gotten enough attention during this session. This is a place where I think we're moving forward. I'm very pleased. I guess on one hand, we're making progress on special education. It's a topic that I've pushed for, and our caucuses pushed for many years to get the right amount of funding into special education in our K-12 system. And we're all supporting, as far as I can tell, the governor's bill, which is a step in the right direction. I don't think it covers all the challenges, but it gets us going in the right direction. So that's progress. And I think we're making a little bit of progress on the learning loss issue, but it's not getting near the attention that it deserves, in my opinion. This is a big deal. We put our children in a very bad situation as a result of keeping them out of school during the pandemic. We have to do more. We have to do it faster if we're going to get them back on track. And there's some work, I know, on the Senate side that's being done in Ways and Means for funding for additional tutoring. That's a good step. Hopefully we'll get some additional after-school instruction, possibly additional summer school. But we can't lose sight of that. And I know there's a lot of issues, and it's hard to keep track of them all. But that's education more broadly is one that I do not think has got the attention it deserves during this session. There's a ton of other issues. There's energy issues, there's environmental issues, there's transportation issues, but for us it's about public safety, affordability, education, and on all things considered, from a minority's perspective, they're not all exactly where I would like them to be policy-wise, but I think broadly, with, one exception of the pursuit issue in the Senate, the process is working as the process is supposed to work, which means there's public hearings, there's debate, there's input, and ultimately we'll get to, I'm hopeful we'll get to a solution that's good for the state in all these areas. And I'll stop right there, and I assume you want to have us take some questions.
Yeah. Question?